Yes, you are now listening to the sound. Sports Reports is ordered. And we've been long overdue. It's been a long time. Shouldn't have left you without a dope take to argue about. You know what I'm saying? But we here now. Let's talk about it. Cincinnati Bengals. We got our eyes on you. We're going to talk a little Big 12 because you know football season's coming up. That's me, and the one and only, the world-renowned, Cool Calm Collected. Born in Texas, raised in VA, representing everything New Jerusalem. He goes by the name of Mr. Logic.
That's me.
Don't bring feelings to a facts fight.
Don't do it. You're doing it too much. It's getting ridiculous.
You got
this isn't the view. Leave that shit at home.
Orthodox statistician. Down here in the Alamo, I do believe in Joe Hendry going left so much that you thought I was southpaw. Just like Manny Pacquiao could not because he old as shit. I am 2'5". Let's get right to it. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things with a liquid death in your hand. The only way to do it. Yes. So, Mr. Logical.
Yeah, I'm here.
As I turn around, there are two NFL teams in Ohio, and everyone points out every mistake one of them makes. But there's another one who might be just as egregious. They just have a great quarterback on their hands. What's going on in Cincinnati?
They're broke. Like I'm gonna keep it on it. They are lacking money. I'm gonna give a personal example. If I take my kids out, like when they were younger, we'd go out, and I didn't have the funds to do everything they wanted to do, and they asked for something, all of a sudden I got attitude. Y'all don't appreciate blah, blah, because I don't have the money. I got to make it seem like it's on them for them being greedy. Because I don't have the money to treat you right now, y'all being greedy.
Right.
But then when I get broke off with a little bit of cash, now all of a sudden I'm like, yo, who try to go to the movies, get ices? We only got to sneak candy in this time. What they did with Joe Burrow, like they figure out a way to get the money when it's time and it's exciting. But right now they broke. I think they just literally don't have the money to pay the players and also not get every bit of blood out of the stone from the players, because it's going to happen. These guys are young, especially with the NFL and how they're interacting and interconnected people's lives. Listen, I'm all about staying out of trouble. Like, you got to stay out of trouble, but you can't tell me as a person that's imperfect, if I make a mistake, that's not detrimental to someone's life. You go out, you lose a game to Cleveland, and you go out, have some drinks with your friends, and some Browns fan runs up on Shamar Stewart and his entourage, and that dude gets pushed over a bar stool. Now he want to sue. And it's like, listen, my emotions ran hot. This dude got in my face, got my personal space. Like, all right, well, we got to suspend you for 2 games for your conduct. And now they can void the money they're supposed to pay him in 2029 because of that.
Here's the quote.
And then they still expect him to play hard. It's like, they're broke and they don't have the money that they don't expect to be around in 2029 as the ownership group. That's my speculation.
So here's the quote. And this is Mike Brown, 89-year-old white man, Cincinnati Bengal owner who turns 90 the day after my birthday on August 10th. So, quote, his agent wants it to be so that if he acted in a terrible fashion, this is all hypothetical, something that rises to the level of going to prison, that we would be on the line for the guarantees for the future years that haven't been paid. And our position is no. If that happens, we're not going to be. We are not going to be paying someone who's sitting in jail. That's not what we're going to do, end quote. So you just made up a whole scenario in your head
You made up the worst possible scenario for a person who's not on trial. He has not been arrested. It's not like he's pending some investigation. You drafted him in the first round, and you think what? Like you think he's going to end up in prison? And I'm pretty sure the NFL has protocols in place with the NFLPA that won't allow you to pay it. Vic wasn't getting paid in prison by the Falcons.
And where was the PR team? Where was the PR team? Because I don't want to go there, but I'm going to just say this one statement, and then we ain't going to do no more of this. But you got an 89-year-old white man talking about a 19 or 20-year-old black man invoking, I'm not going to pay you if you go to prison.
Who is a professional athlete who's gone to college, who's done everything in the hiring process to be hired, aka drafted in the first round. You would think he played for
Georgia or something.
You would think he came up with a charger and he was talking about he was going to hang out with Henry Ruggs. Listen, I understand the language of the contract. If you violate, but that's already written in the collective bargaining. Because even unless she's thinking Aaron Hernandez, but Aaron Hernandez already got paid that money, and the Patriots were trying to take it back. Like that was already under his contract. It was a signing bonus. It wasn't going forward. It's like he signed and they didn't want to pay. It's like that's different. He signed. There's different dates. So if you're on a team March 1st, you're on a team March 1st. Mm-hmm. So this guy to hypothetically assume that a guy you hired is going to also be a prisoner within the next 4 years, it's just weird. And I know you can say like an 89-year-old white man and this young black male. We've talked about the owner slave mentality relationship with players before, and people always get mad like you're getting paid millions of dollars. These people cutting these checks don't all like who they're paying. They like the fact that some of them like the fact that they're paying these particular players of any ethnicity, and then that's turning into green. So black, white, brown, whatever. They had to change it. The Houston Texans owner, the inmates are running asylum. Why would you use that phrase for guys just trying to negotiate? You negotiate, they negotiate. They have Roger Goodell negotiate on their behalf for TV deals, negotiating on their behalf. They get more money out of the players. But once again, like I said, people are going to side with the billionaire. I just say like this. I think this current time in our country, there's too many ways to get information, access information, verify information, get information from the past and bring it to the forefront for people to lie as much as they're lying publicly. Just say it. We don't want to pay out these guarantees because I never wanted to pay out these guarantees because I don't want to do that. I'm a cheap owner. We don't have that much money. I want to pay you on year-to-year contracts. I don't want to sign guys to 3 or 4 or 5 year contracts because the way you have to divide that money up allows them to get guarantees planning in a contract. I don't want to do that. I want to pay everybody on the roster 1 year at a time, and I want to get rid of them if they don't align with what I want or if they want too much money. That's all it is. It has nothing to do. If they thought he was going to end up in prison, they should have taken the next best defensive lineman or the next best player on the board. You can't just draft a guy and all of a sudden think that, oh, we need to put this in a contract just in case he goes to prison. He's there to play football. Guys aren't just going to prison on a whim from football fields. That is a cautionary tale. That is not a standard set of behaviors.
Right. So
I get if you're running some kind of school where you're bringing in guys who got kicked off, like Last Chance U. Those guys all were getting kicked off of other teams. So yeah, they came there fresh off of the infraction that got them off the last team to this team. Yeah, you might want to, kind of cultivate that a little bit more. But this guy is coming out of college, a professional. You drafted him, and now you just assume he's going to go to prison, so you don't want to pay him.
Now, from the Shamar Stewart side of things, the Bengals have his rights. Obviously, they drafted him. He can ask for a trade if he deems that necessary. He has until August 5th. That's the deadline, 30 days from the regular season. The start of the regular season is the deadline for that, for draft picks, rookies, whatever. So with that being said, the other option that people have been throwing out is, could he go back to college? Could he go back to Texas A&M? You know, allegedly he's been down there in College Station practicing every so often. Could he go back to college? So I've seen this. I was a little baby kid. I read about it really, but Bo Jackson, you know, he got drafted number 1 overall. The Buccaneers lied to him, which, you know, put his eligibility in question. So he said, I will not play a down for this team. He went back to Auburn. He came and got drafted the next year, but he went in the 7th round. So with that being said, Shamar Stewart is not Bo Jackson. He's not a Bo Jackson. He's not the next anything on that level. So, Mr. Logical, the question that I present to you is, if you're Shamar Stewart, is going back to college an option?
No. I want to go back to college because it's like you weaken your leverage when you go back to school. Because now you just get put in a pot where there might be 12 more defensive linemen available, or maybe some owners are kind of rubbed the wrong way that you are, you know, fighting back against, you know, maybe a fellow friend of theirs. So you might be off of 10 teams boards. That's a third of the league.
And you don't want to, and they don't want to set a precedent.
And you definitely, yeah. So you got 10 new teams and the Bengals, and that's a third of the league that won't take you. I think cooler heads, smarter heads will either take the language out of the contract or revise it, or you figure out a way to make a trade and you go on with your season, because you cannot waste your first round pick and not get any productivity on your defensive side, considering the starting quarterback that you pay over $250 million to $255, I believe, had probably the best season of any quarterback last year and was nowhere near the MVP because the defense was giving up 38 points when he got you 34, 35 consistently, or giving up that final drive when they had a 4-point lead and the team would give up 7, or they have a 1-point lead and they allow the team to get in field goal range on 2 or 3 passes. You cannot go into this season with the amount of money you put on offense, the amount of money you spent on offense, the amount of talent. It's not even like the amount of money they spent. A lot of teams spend a lot of money on offense. They have a dynamic triple threat in the passing game. You can't waste your first round pick. You have to get that guy on the field, or someone to be productive, or at least a future. Like, hey, we traded him for a first and a third next year. At least you can say next year we'll get it right. But this is on them because they didn't have that language in the contract, that first round pick that they had last year. And it's just not wise.
So the Bengals are in my opinion, in a back against the wall situation. You know, because like we said, they don't want to set a precedent, but other things have happened, right? Joe Burrow, $219 million guaranteed. They guaranteed $153 million between their 2 receivers, you know, Higgins and Chase. But also now, Jaden Higgins, wide receiver from Iowa State that I loved, got picked in the 2nd round by the Houston Texans. He's the first 2nd round pick in NFL history to get a fully guaranteed contract. He got 4 years, 11.7. So not groundbreaking, earth-shattering money. But if you're Shamar Stewart, you're looking at this going, hold up. A team was willing to pay a 2nd round pick and give him a fully guaranteed contract?
I think what this is showing free agents, is showing the current guy who's a free agent on their team, Hendrickson, led the league in sacks. It's showing them that the Bengals are not a serious franchise, and they're going to have to do a lot of PR work to kind of bridge, because if I'm a free agent, unless I'm on like I'm 28 or 29 30, and I'm at that point where the NFL thinks I'm old, Cincinnati might be a destination if they call. But if I'm, say Rashad Bateman was available, and like they had a spot for a wide receiver, if you're looking at this, like, man, I'm not going and dealing with that. Like, I'm better off staying here with the team that drafted me versus going and deal with, someone that's like their archaic kind of ideology and archaic thinking. Let's keep it 100. They don't have a heated, covered dome practice facility. They practice outside. There's high schools in Ohio that have indoor practice facilities, high schools. And the Bengals don't. They practice outside in the Great Lakes weather, in that cold,
the snow
sticky,
effect.
slushy, that lake slushy snow. Like,
The lake
they
effect.
just out there
Yeah.
running slants in it. For what?
So-
because their team is too cheap. The owner is too cheap to spend the money to get them because they don't have that money available.
So you ready for stat time?
Let's hear it.
So Trey Hendrickson, right?
Mhm.
Led the NFL in sacks last year, led the NFL in quarterback pressures last year, second in the league in quarterback hits last year. So if you look over the last 2 years, he's got 4.5 more sacks than TJ Watt. He's got 7 more sacks than Myles Garrett. And he can't get paid, even though both of them just got paid. And we saw what TJ Watt just got paid. So, this is the Bengals' MO because you got people like Andrew Whitworth, Marvin Jones, Mohamed Sanu, Jesse Bates, that for whatever reason, the Bengals decided, we're better off without you. Somebody will pay you, but it won't be us. They held on to Marvin Lewis, never won a playoff game, and they wouldn't fire him. You know what I mean?
Odd loyalties.
Right. Whereas, like, I don't want to make a basketball comparison, but you got somebody like Tibbs just took a team to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they said, "Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you."
Because they were going to get rid of, like I said, they're going to get rid of Tibbs just the same way the Bengals were going. The Bengals, I don't think they care. I don't think they care as much about keeping their players as they do about maximizing whatever profit they get from the revenue sharing.
Right.
Like I said, to Cross Sports, Pittsburgh's owner, a lot of Pittsburgh Pirates, that owner does stuff like a guy will have a clause in his contract that says if he gets, let's throw a hypothetical number, 350 at bats in a season, he gets a $1.2 million bonus. They'll have a guy sit at 347. Just sit him. Don't let him get these 3 extra at bats just to save the 1.2 million. I think the Bengals are that kind of team. I don't know if they generate a lot of money, and like the Cowboys can basically sell a TV show about themselves to any network. The cheerleaders have been on Netflix forever. Jerry Jones has a radio show. Multiple players have had podcasts. Multiple coaches have gone on to be celebrity, voice color commentators and all that other stuff. I think the Cowboys sell that brand, and they just behave like a team that acts like they want to win, but they just have the brand. I think Cincinnati's like, hey, we're in the league. We're following whatever rules are available, but that's it. We're not doing anything extra. I'm not building a facility. I'm not going to re-sign these guys. I'm not going to go into the luxury. I'm not going to max out the salary cap to try to win a championship. I'm going to do what I have to do. I imagine that their food service is probably rated low. If you check that, you know how they every year they rank teams.
You read my mind. I was just about to bring that up. So on the back of what you were saying, the nutritionist for the Bengals got a C rating. The treatment of player families, F. The food, F. Overall in the league this year, 24th, they were rated as basically their amenities and franchise. So, but to be fair, that is improvement because they were 26th last year and they were 27th the year before that. But at the end of the day, that just shows
I think that might be somebody else getting worse. I don't think that's them improving. I think
right.
I think the Cardinals just got worse. I believe the Chiefs
Yeah,
have
the
a terrible
Jets
locker room as
probably.
well. The Jets probably got worse. But family treatment, you can tell how well an organization wants to run based on how they treat you in regards to your family. I know that with the military. I had a commander say, mission first, people always. Because that guy was like, listen, like, guy get a phone call saying his kid has like 102 temperature. And we're like, all right, just let me know what the ER doctor says. And I'll hear him like, what are you talking about? Oh, my son, my wife's taking my son to the ER. He's at a temperature. I'm like, all right, well, go ahead, turn your tools in and get up out of here. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't need you here unfocused. Like, they need
Working
you at
on
the ER.
aircraft.
Like, yeah, I don't have you out here working on a strut on a 300,000-pound plane. Like, no, kick rocks. This will get worked in the morning, or we'll put it on maintenance hold because personnel. It is what it is. There's a way I can make that happen. So the way you treat families, the way you treat the people who work around you, that keeps people around. It keeps people around when you treat their family well. Because like as a football player, all you want to do is play football. But if every time your mother wants to come see you play or your family wants to come see you play, and you're sending them to the regular line for security when you can clearly set up a family security gate, but you won't do it. It's like, come on, man, you really got my mom out here in the Cincinnati cold. We trying to get to the box. Like, nah, she got to go through the regular security line. We got to check her bags. It's like, yeah, I'm not re-signing here. And that's the kind of, you can tell, like, I think that's how they run their organization.
And then to top off all the stats that I gave about Trey Hendrickson earlier, Shamar Stewart was considered a project, if you will. Like, he's got the athletic ability, but maybe he's not maximizing his potential. They said this about a guy that led college football in quarterback pressures last year. So you got the potential to have the dude that led the NFL in sacks, in pressures, next to the guy that led college football in pressures, and you're just saying, yeah, we'll get around to it at some point.
Learning from that guy, which then in turn, your poor pass defense will now be improved because you keep letting safeties leave. Well, at least you got a pass rush up front, and you have a guy on the field that can teach the other guy on the field how to help your team win and lead to success. I'm not sure if that's their primary motive, because even the year, I like the gamble that they took with getting Jamar Chase the year instead of taking Penei Sewell, but every other expert was like, yeah, you got a quarterback that just came off an ACL tear. You have the worst offensive line.
He's
You
still
took him
getting
number
hit.
one. You should have, you probably, like I said, it was a smart move for me schematically to have a guy he had a rapport with, but you should have immediately after that made a move to maybe jump back into the first round and get your next offensive lineman. Like, you should have done something different besides like, well, we got him his favorite target. But it's like their actions from the outside watching, and if you think about what successful organizations do and what mediocre organizations do, their behaviors year after year seem to lend themselves to this infinity that they're going to stay mediocre. And the guy calling the shots doesn't seem to care about that.
And of course, like, when you add in, Marge Scott, Cincinnati Reds at one point, the owner of them at one point.
But she got mad when they swept and didn't get back for the game 5. They won the World Series.
It's a Cincinnati thing. Something's up with that city. I guess the only thing worth anything there is Skyline Chili. Like, I don't know, but
I went to Cincinnati in high school. I had a good time.
So coming into this season, you got to remember too, you're in a division with the Steelers and you're in a division with the Ravens. You know what I mean? And you're already coming into the fight without a loaded gun as is.
You're fighting for fourth in a division where you can easily be competing for first, because there's not a lot of data that says the Aaron Rodgers post Green Bay new team is going to work, because he had a good year with the Jets.
Right.
There's no evidence that, you know what, this is like when Stafford went from Detroit to LA, you're like, okay, Stafford with McVay, it's gonna work. Like you can tell, like everything is gonna work. There's not a lot of evidence that says Arthur Smith is going to be innovative enough to make Aaron Rodgers love being there and play like MVP level Aaron Rodgers. Then you have Baltimore. Baltimore has an average wide receiver core, poor pass defense, and they're going to rely so heavily on Lamar. He might have to have another 40 touchdown season for them to get to 11 or 12 wins, or 11 wins. And Cleveland has like 4 quarterbacks in the room. They drafted 2 of them. And it's like they just have this not necessarily controversy, but they have complications at the most important position. So Cincinnati's
Mike,
like,
trust no
we
city.
can lean into being better, but they're like, nah, we want to battle down here with this other Ohio team for 4th.
Mike, I don't trust no city that produced Adrian Broner. You know what I'm saying? I don't trust no city.
I went to Cincinnati when I was in high school. It's a dope little city.
I do want some Skyline chili though. I do need that in my life after all the things that I've heard about it. But yeah, so like the Cincinnati Bengals, you know what I mean? Not to beat the dead horse, but they just went to the Super Bowl 3 years ago. Went into Arrowhead and won an AFC championship game, and you decided, as long as I keep the receivers, everything will be fine.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Logical, taking it over to college football, SMU last year, called the ACC, said, hey, we got $7 million, saying that we can subsidize ourselves with. We don't need any of your TV money for the first 7 years that we're in the conference. Let us in. And the ACC was preparing for potential Florida State, Miami, all these teams, Clemson, were all upset, is the ACC going to fall apart? So Memphis, decided from the same conference SMU left, they decided, well, hey, we got a random $200 million sitting around. Let us in. And the Big 12 said, not so fast, my friend. So first, Mr. Logical, what do you think about what Memphis tried to do?
I think it lends itself to the hypocrisy of what's going on in college football and the pundits and how people cover it. Coaches, schools, athletic directors, they can make all the movement they want in order to obtain another bite at a bigger apple. And it's, there's no discuss with it. There's no one's upset. No one's calling for new rule changes. I want to say no one. I don't want to speak in generalities, but it's a lot of people that are just kind of letting this stuff happen. I don't like all of the league movement. I think the Big 12 is 18 teams and the Big 10 is 16. Yeah. The Pac-12 is coming back, but most of their teams are in Texas and it's like, once again, we are lying and expecting me to just believe it. They're just pissing in all of our pockets and telling us it's raining. These teams want to go so they can compete for the national championship to get more money. Most teams, like Memphis, probably not going to get the same amount of talent to be able to really compete on a national championship. But if you join the Big 12, now I get a cut of this money. And that's what it's all about. And they're trying to say, we're trying to compete with these other schools for NIL. Like, that's not where you have to compete. You got to find your lane and stick to it. You want to get into these other big boy groups because you want a pot of that. You want a slice of that money. You don't mind going 4-8 because it's not like you're going to go in the Big 12 and just immediately compete. It's not as if Memphis will even go in the SEC and immediately compete. You're probably going to get curb stomped for a while. These other schools are blue bloods. They're legacies. They have the facilities. They have all the money. They have the cachet. They have the former players, first-round draft picks, Heisman Trophy winners, the Hall of Fame coaches. They have all this stuff established. You don't. You're going to go there and willingly just put yourself to the fodder for a little bit of money.
Hey,
instead of staying where you are and competing and just playing football. Student athletes. That's what they always said, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like all everybody else is like banker, student athlete.
Well, I will have you know that
AD.
I will have you know that Memphis, you know what I'm saying, gave us Mike Norvell. But anyway,
and we'll see how long that lasts. You might be hired down there before the end of the season.
So look, I'm gonna give you some reasons that the Big 12 should have taken Memphis, and I'm gonna give you some reasons that the Big 12 shouldn't took Memphis. So first, everything that you just said, right? I don't know about the facilities per se, but just looking at football stadiums, if Memphis joined the Big 12 right now, out of 16 teams, they would have the 5th biggest stadium. And they're renovating right now. Their stadium is also being used for a bowl game. You know, so there's money that comes along with their stadium. There comes a bowl game opportunity for you to add to your conference. If you follow sports reports as ordered at all within the last 2 years, you've heard me make arguments that Memphis should be a Power 5 team. You know, the Big 12 already has West Virginia. They already have Cincinnati. You need that geographical bridge, you know, because the Arizona schools have Colorado and the Utah schools. You know, like UCF's down there on the island by themselves, but you could bring USF in with Memphis. But these are some of the reasons why I think the Big 12 didn't take Memphis, though.
All right.
You know, so 2031, 2036, what do those years mean? So initially, the ACC contract, the TV deal, went through 2036. Now, it's been expedited up to 2031, and at that point, ESPN and the gang can decide, I want to continue to do this, which just so happens lines up with the Big Ten's TV deal expiring. So now, with that being said, with the uncertainty in the ACC, maybe the Big 12's playing the long game, because these ACC schools, if they decide to leave and pay the payout, they're going to need somewhere to land. It's not guaranteed that you're getting into the SEC. It's not.
Yeah, but by the time, so we're 2025 right now. By the time 2028 comes around, they're going to have revamped the playoff system.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably going to fleece a whole nother conference again and take most of their teams. And the Big 12, the Big 10 are going to be probably up to 20 teams by then, because.
But that's the thing, right?
Memphis is leaning towards. They're leaning.
You don't have to worry about
like this big Power 4, or it's simply going to be all the Big 10 schools and all the teams that they deem worthy enough to compete for national championships. They're going to come to the Big 10, and the SEC is going to say, you know what? We're going to take all of the teams down here that we think are worthy of championships. And there's going to be 50 teams that are going to compete for the championship, and everybody else is going to be out in the cold anyway. So, perhaps. And they're probably going to get rid of you. Like, yeah, you aren't.
Perhaps. I know that's something that we've talked about, the AFC, NFC component to this conversation, but let's just say that doesn't happen. You know, Memphis ain't going nowhere. You know, like you talked about how the Pac-12 brought Texas State in. They've been trying to get Memphis for the last little bit. If Memphis decided to go to the Pac-12, which they have turned down recently, they'll still be there. If they go to the Pac-12, they'll still be there. So the Big 12 can come get Memphis at any point that they see fit.
But the Pac-12 is not going to be invited to the big boy table. The Pac-12 is going to be on the outside with everybody else. When the conglomerate of SEC Big 10 becomes the SEC Big 10, or the SEC Big, or SEC 10, or whatever it's called. It's gonna alienate some of these teams. I think teams are trying to line themselves up with these organizations thinking they're going to stay in. But so let's just say there's going to be an exodus of some kind, to where the NCAA as we see it today won't look the same in 2028 or 2020.
Oh yeah, the NCAA will probably be gone altogether. But let's just say this NFC AFC thing happens. Do you think that it would be feasible for the leftovers, whatever ACC teams, whatever Big 12 teams didn't get invited to the party? Do you think it would be feasible for them to have their own league and would people watch it?
Yeah, it's gonna get tiered off. It's gonna be what we have now, like FBF, FCS. It's gonna be an FES, the Football Elite Conference, FEC. So it's gonna be all the former SEC schools, the Big 12 schools, Big 10, sprinkling Clemson, maybe Miami, Virginia Tech if they're lucky, but more likely Clemson, Miami.
Man, we
That's
can't get
going to be
invited to the table.
that's going to be that. It's going to be that top tier, and then the second tier, they're going to have their own championship series, and it's going to be your Pac-12 teams. It's going to be your AAC teams. You're going to be the remainder of the SEC teams. They might toss Maryland out, like the team that they feel like won't compete at the FEC level. Like, I'm just making up an acronym, and they're going to have their own thing. And it's going to be like, all right, you guys can play for this kind of trophy at these college stadiums. Meanwhile, all of these championships are going to be played at these brand new domed NFL stadiums that are popping up all over the country. And they're going to just press on with, hey, these are where all the NFL players are coming from, these schools anyway. These are the elite schools. These are the top schools. This is the data that supports. Miami had this many first-round draft picks. Ohio State had this many. That's gonna be an excuse, and then people are gonna run with it because we, as people who get regular checks, tend to align themselves with the thoughts and ideologies and preferences of billionaires, and they're gonna pull all the things they want. They're gonna set up their own little league, and that's gonna be it.
Well, I don't think we've heard the last of Memphis. You know what I mean? Like I said, they had obviously $200 million to make this offer. They've been trying to put this in motion for the last 14 months, according to Ross Dellinger over at Yahoo. So from that, they have these relationships with FedEx, obviously. They're in bed with Lowe's and AutoZone. And Memphis brings something. And I know, football drives the bus.
Absolutely.
But Memphis brings brand recognition, because if we look across the Big 12, right, you have your Arizonas, you have your Kansas basketball, you have Utah football, BYU, but then you got your Iowa States, Ames, Iowa, Manhattan, Kansas, even the Jayhawks play in Lawrence, Kansas.
But those teams are beloved by their state, so their games, although it might not look like crazy on a grand national scale, Iowa State's a huge rivalry. Like, then you have these games that played, like these games sell out. So they have
correct. But
even though
10 years ago, would you have said Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston are going to be in the Big 12?
I didn't think they would do this kind of merger. I always thought like they would keep it tiered, and I believe what happened was they started playing these beasts. When they had the 4 BCS teams, and then Hawaii was getting beat, Cincinnati was getting beat, and they were just kind of letting this 4th team in because, hey, they went undefeated, and Alabama will go in there and steamroll these teams. I never thought they would bring them into the fold. But when you figure out the cut of the money and how teams are just basically paying their way in, they're like, all right, cool, we'll let you pay your way in. But eventually it won't be enough because you won't be able to compete at the level. Like, LSU is going to have a top 10 roster every year. It's all about executing from September to November. Like, that's just going to be the basis of, because of the luxury of who they are. Alabama, Georgia, Florida, all these schools are going to be like, these blue blood schools are always going to be able to compete. Houston can go up and down. Houston loses a coach, they can set them back a couple of years. LSU gets a new coach this week. If Brian Kelly says, you know what, I'm going to NFL, I'm going to be the Saints offensive coordinator, he leaves right now, they can bring in a coach. LSU competes this year with the new coach who can start his job tomorrow. And they're still going to be able to compete on a national level and have award-winning players on a team, from the Outland Trophy to the Maxwell to the Biletnikoff. They're going to be able to compete. Houston can't do that. Cincinnati can't do that.
100%.
Memphis can't do that. So that's why, like, having them in there is, I think they're realizing, like, you know what? There is levels to this, and I believe they're going to want to operate at that level because that's where the money's going to be. The money's not going to be watching
Right. But
LSU.
going to your point, though, like when they do this split or, you know, potential split or whatever might happen, you know, there are some Big 12 schools that could get invited to the party. So even if this next tier thing that you're speaking on happens,
Yeah,
you still want to be at the top level of that. So you know what I mean? So like it doesn't pay for Memphis to try to stay in the American Conference, not the AAC anymore. They're just the American Conference now.
so
You know, it doesn't pay for Memphis to go to the Pac-12. And like I said, and if they do, they can still be poached later. You know, you just got to see how this ACC thing is going to play out, because this split that we're talking about, you know, we think that it's going to happen at a specific time or whatever the case may be. But just hypothetically, what if it doesn't happen to 2040? What if it doesn't happen to 2045? You know,
these guys
so
are
like
too
there's
greedy to
still
let it go for too
ways for
long.
Memphis
And with the ACC,
no, I
way
agree that that's a
you
very
talk about
distinct
the
possibility.
geographical part. The geographical part for the SEC or the ACC is that some of their schools are in somewhat Big Ten country, and then the other ones are in SEC country. So just geographically, recruiting and everything else, Clemson, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, all these schools, they can just flow right into the SEC. It's already that region, the weather, the people, the mannerisms, like the love, the passion they have for football, it all fits right there anyway. So, like, sliding
Well, there's a reason Tennessee ain't
Oklahoma
letting that
out,
happen.
but that's what I'm saying. So then
Tennessee
you
ain't
get
letting
like
that happen. You know what I
you
mean?
get like
And
your West Virginias
you
go
know,
to, they're in the Big Ten, your Pitts, all of those guys go to the Big Ten, and you have your blue blood names. You have pretty much the essential, like, the core of college football regionally already there, and then you have the cachet of being Big Ten and SEC. You have all the money, and then maybe you pull in a couple of Big 12 teams. But if the Big 12 keeps having all these teams that are way west of the Mississippi, then it's going to leave more for the Big Ten to be the northern part and the SEC to be the southern part, and that's going to be your AFC, NFC type of setup, and that's when they're going to just branch off.
That's the way I see it
like those
playing out
dudes
as
tried
well
to do
at some
back in
point. You know what I
1861.
mean? But with Memphis is always going to be good with me because they're 1-22 against Tennessee all time, and that one they upset Peyton Manning. But anyway, I've been talking about this for a little while, you know, because I thought that Memphis should have been trying to get their way into the ACC as far as, you know, the drama that was going on, the ACC trying to grasp for straws if some of these doomsday scenarios happen, you know what I mean? And I guess if the playoffs are going to change, like you were saying, like which we're headed down that road,
the writing's on the wall, and I think the Memphis people
but you
know
want
that.
to get your life preserved in a place where there's more playoff spots available, because for all intents and purposes, we're looking at the G5, you know, because right now the G5 has an automatic slot. Looking at the G5, that spot's going to the Pac-12. Like out of every 5 years,
that depends on how well they perform. I know UCLA and, like, I think USC went to SEC, correct? Like, went to Big Ten.
They're in the Big Ten.
They're all in the Big Ten. So what it is now, like, I'm just thinking like this now. It's like the Titanic. There's a lifeboat still attached to the Titanic that's being lowered, and you can jump from there, from the ledge, get on that boat. It's like 50 people on it. You're going to be safe. You're good to go, but that's the closest one. Memphis is trying to jump in the water and swim to the one that has 12 people just so they have more space and they can feel elite. Like, oh, this one only has 12 people. Like, no, you need to hop in this one because this, like you said, the ACC, that's your best bet. But it's too appealing to be in this elite group and the elite group is going to start separating themselves from everyone. We talked about it like the SEC and the Big Ten. They want 8 of the 12 spots. What the hell makes you think you have 8 of the top 12 teams in the country compete for the championship?
And that's why Memphis is uniquely situated, as far as the money, the sponsorships, who they have dealings with, their stadium size. Because like I said, they would be 5th in the Big 12 right now if they were in the Big 12 just off stadium size. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you look at somebody like a Tulane, for example, Tulane plays in New Orleans. Yeah, they play in New Orleans, right? But their stadium, 30,000 seats. USF right now
Carolina
they're playing
numbers.
At
I think Coastal Carolina has like 30,000.
Probably. USF plays at Raymond James, where the Buccaneers play, but they're building an on-campus stadium. You know what? 35,000 seats is the plan for that stadium. So Memphis, I would say to a lesser degree,
I think that's wise because it's going to be, you're going to be tiered off. You're not going to get the cut of the pot. If you're a team that's not one of these hardcore blue bloods, you're not building a 70,000 seat arena. You're just not. Like if you're building a new stadium and you are Tulane, UCF, like I said, well, Memphis has a big stadium, but like if Cincinnati was to build a new one, they're not building one for 100,000 people. You don't get those kind of numbers. If Ohio State built a new stadium, it's 120,000 people. Guaranteed. If they decide to build a new one instead of the shoe, it's going to be, if they want to expand it, Texas, they're building a new one, it could be 100. Certain schools are going to have that cachet, and I think they're going to exploit that and extract that.
But this is also the same conference that just up until a year ago, we're having talks with UConn. We're having talks with for football only. Was talking to Gonzaga for basketball, obviously. So it's not as if Memphis doesn't fit that profile because they bring a more historical program than Gonzaga. Obviously, Gonzaga's been better recently, but Memphis is an actual basketball brand in the Big 12. Up until this past year, where the SEC came out of the ashes, the Big 12 was the best basketball conference in the country, and their their commissioner, Brett Yormark, Rock Nation background, but he also has a New York City basketball background. So basketball appeals to him, hence UConn, Gonzaga. So like it's not as if Memphis shot at the wrong target. I just think the Big 12, to your point, sees the writing on the wall and has bigger plans.
Yeah, and I don't believe some of these smaller fish are in those plans. So that's because
basketball might be your other option, right? Basketball. So do you think that
that's
as we talk about this split,
the NBA has
hold on, real quick.
Basketball
as we talk about the split, right? But as we talk about this split, do you think that applies to the basketball side of the house as well?
I think basketball is gonna it's probably gonna build its own thing. I think the conference is going to be more the tier and not necessarily the name of the conference. So you're just going to be tiered off, like how UConn football was never been like a top D1 program. Meanwhile, Ray Allen and Rip Hamilton and Sharif, all these guys, Sabit and all these other guys been playing for national championships every single year. Their football program was never on par with that. I think it's going to be one of those things where it's like, listen, your football program is tier 3, your basketball program is tier 1. So you can compete with the basketball team in tier 1 across the country, but your football team is probably going to compete in this range where you're going to play teams like Cincinnati.
And I think for a school like Memphis, that's worth it.
If you can get
in. For a school like Memphis, that's worth it, especially when we know you because of basketball. That's what put Memphis on the map in the first place.
What I'm saying is, like, I don't think one thing is gonna like It's like you and 3 of your homeboys again to the club, and it's like, listen, you two are dressed right. Y'all can go in the club section. The other two, we're gonna let you in, but you gotta hang out here at the bar because we got the cameras on in the back of the club. We live stream it. You guys fit the profile. You fit the aesthetic, so you can go back here. You two, y'all can come in, but you gotta hang out here by the bar because we're not live streaming out here. So enjoy your night in here, drinking at the bar. We have the same drink menu, but you two fit the aesthetic. You two fit the branding that we want to show. You guys can go back here, and I think that's what college football and college basketball are probably gonna do. I'm not sure how it's gonna work on the women's side with the basketball, but I have a feeling that it's gonna be a tiered, monetary base. Like, how much money are you generating? How much money are you gonna project?
That's the other thing, right? Because that's the other thing, right? Because basketball, as is, the team that wins the national title plays 40 games in a season. So your regular season generally ends around 30 or 31. You add your conference tournament, 6 tournament games. So if that split happens in that way, you're not going to have a 14-game basketball season. And if we're looking at this as far as we're the elite, they're the bottom tier, or whatever the case may be, you run into those issues of who do I put in the tournament because y'all got a weak schedule, or whatever the case may be.
You're gonna grade the tier 1 schools. They're like, you and I, we're both retired veterans. We get a 10-point bump if we apply for a government job. It's going to be the same thing because we've done 20 plus years, retired veterans. We apply for the job. We get a 10-point bump over the person who maybe did 10 years and they're applying for the job. So tier 1, we're going to make it, what is it going to go? Probably right now we're at 68 teams. Maybe they go up a couple more rounds, but they're probably going to get a lot of their pot are going to be automatic bids from tier 1, and then tier 2 and tier 3 champions, and then the bubble teams from tier 2, tier 3 are going to compete with the bubble teams from tier 1. So the model at the end of the day won't be inclusion. It's going to be monetary generation. Are you generating money? Are you generating buzz? And the skill set of your players, do they match the money you're creating? And once you do that, and that's the part, like, people keep talking about the NIL and how the NIL is not fair. It's like these schools are making moves strictly based off of money, because a lot of the moves they're not geographically smart. They're not logistically smart. The fact that Cal and Stanford play ACC games and South Carolina one week and North Carolina another week and Florida another week potentially, or the fact that Miami, North Carolina, and Virginia got to fly all the way across the country. It's like none of that logistically makes sense to bring 83 players, considering.
And then you still got to worry about
45 of them aren't going to touch the field. And you're just flying them across the country just to play a football game.
Still got other things. You still got other things to worry about. You still got Title IX to worry about. You still got your baseball, your Olympic sports, lacrosse, sports like that don't generate the revenue that are only alive because of the football program.
They're taking those kind of programs and they're making them club teams. So guys are going to Division 1, Division 2, Division 3 lacrosse schools, schools that play lacrosse. And because their football program, which, that's the straw that stirs the drink, isn't generating enough money, then those programs are getting cut. Football's still going to be football. Football's still always going to generate.
Basketball?
It's going to be football and basketball.
And women's basketball?
You're gonna have to hope that your football program at whatever tier they end up in is generating enough money from ABC, NBC, Fox, ESPN, Fox Sports 1, whoever you have a TV deal with, that's going to be able to matriculate down to these other programs, which I think they'll be fine. It won't look the same. One school might get, hypothetically, you might get $1 million for your swim team at Tulane. and Ohio State might get 11. But that's because Ohio State's football team is going to generate $100 million, and Tulane's football team's going to get you 10. It's never going to be a level playing field. It never has. It hasn't been a level playing field. People talk about the NIL deals, the reason that college football. It's never been the case. If I, as an organization, if I fly recruits and their families up for the game, and I can afford to fly 50 recruits up in the course of, our 4 to 6 home games, and another school can only fly 10, that's my advantage right there before any NIL money comes. Like if the max number of visits is 50, but you can't afford to get the 50. Well, if I'm Ohio State, Michigan, now at this point, maybe like LSU, Bama, Georgia, I got 50 recruit money in a desk drawer somewhere in petty cash, and we're buying plane tickets and hotels, and bring your mom, sister, grandma, your uncle that's a big Penn State fan. Everybody can come. We got enough. Tulane doesn't have that.
I think that there's still.
So the money's always been the.
But I think that there's still value because I don't think that these channels like ESPN, Fox, CBS, whoever. I don't think
just play SEC games all the time. I don't think they're.
That's what I'm saying.
They're just not going to get there. These teams aren't going to be in that other pot. Like I said, this is all hypothetical, but it feels as if how we talked about the NBA. There's an even number of NBA teams. There should be enough games. There should be enough slots in the NBA TV contracts to get all 30 NBA teams a good number of nationally televised games. 18 to 22 games at a minimum. Teams shouldn't be out here getting 38, 40 televised games. Another team gets 12. But they don't do that because it's like, Charlotte, you don't generate the same kind of ratings as LA. So it's already showing you we're doing this and you guys are getting the same cut of money. And I don't appreciate it. And that we don't care. We don't care that Charlotte is in the NBA with professional players, a professional organization. But you're not the Lakers. You're not Golden State. Next year, you're not OKC. So it's like you're going to get your 12 games. And if you go 4-8 in those televised games, good job. We don't care. We only want these teams. We want Jokic, Giannis, Steph, LeBron, Luka, healthy Kyrie. We want the Clippers because they got all these personalities. We want Houston because they got KD. Listen, maybe we get a little bit of Zion, but we're not expecting you to play the whole year. So we're going to throw you 18 games. Deal with it. And that's what college football is going to do. Like, listen, cool, deal with it. You guys aren't up here. You are not Ohio State. You are not Penn State. You are not LSU. You're not Georgia. Not Alabama. Florida, you want to be that? You can slide your way in. But UCF, you probably won't get to this tier. We'll give you a nice TV deal. You'll play on the ESPN2 or you'll play on the Ocho, but you're probably not going to get the Saturday night primetime game.
And in the end, that's 2-5's worst sports nightmare. So, hey, we will be back on Friday. You know what I'm saying? Thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. We love y'all all so much. You know what I'm saying? Enjoy your baseball. Absolutely. I guess that's the only thing we got until the Hall of Fame game on July 31st. Lions and Chargers. But we'll be back. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things while drinking a liquid death, while sharing facts and not bringing feelings to the fact fight. He is the world-renowned, the world-famous, the one and only, cool, calm, collected, just like always. Mike Tomlin, Mr. Logic.
Some of us Virginia boys.
Love y'all. Peace.